Yeah, everything okay?
Looks good.
Okay. Can I start? Yeah.
Yep, go for it.
So I'm Lori. Most people already know me, I think. And I'm going to talk about how I'm using Blitz with streams based with Blitz. And as you can see, I really love it. So a little background about Streamspace. I started working on it in May 2020. It was not long after the alpha release of Blitz itself. So it was still pretty basic. This was only CRUD that you basically could do with Blitz. I'm working on it solo. So yeah, it's just me. What's Streambase? It's a central hub for gaming live streams. So currently it supports Trovo, Twitch, and YouTube. And you can just use one application to watch live streams, search new content, keep track of your favorite content, and create lists. So yeah, you can import all your favorites, all your follow channels into one application without having to go to YouTube, go to Twitch, go to Trovo, who's online where. It's all in one application. I also created an extensive search because I think YouTube especially doesn't really have a nice search for live streams. So I decided to build a better search so it's easier to find new content. This is a very bare bones overview of my application. So it's deployed on Kubernetes. Database on DigitalOcean. Kubernetes is on DigitalOcean too. So here is the Blitz application. These are Kubernetes cron jobs. This is Meilisearch, which is an open source Algolia alternative. And this is Socket Cluster, which is a library for easily creating WebSocket connections. And it's very easy to deploy on Kubernetes. It scales very easy and it uses not many resources. So you can scale up to millions of requests without having problems. I'm going deeper into this architecture later on. So what's in the box? These are the tools that I'm using the most with Blitz. So the first one is Twin Macro, which is Tailwind plus style components. I don't think we already have a recipe for it, so I probably should make it. Frame of motion for animations. Then I don't know how to pronounce this. It's Zustand in German, I think, but I don't know if it's pronounced in English or Simon and his friend probably can tell me how it's pronounced properly. Then I chose React hook form, even though it's not the default, but it's the one that I know the best, so I just went with what I know. React concurrent mode patterns is something I'm using a lot in my application because I have a lot of search filters and I don't want the whole page to have loading screens all over the place. So I'm heavily using that to keep everything clean. Then incremental static regeneration for public content is something that I also am using heavily because I have around 300,000 games and 5 million channels. So this comes very handy. One of the things that I like the most of Blitz is Passport as authentication. And in my case, it's the Passport.js. I don't have a regular email and password login because I don't really need it with this application. So user can log in with their Twitch, Trovo, or YouTube account, and then they can import their favorites, their subscriptions, and all other information that's needed to have a full experience. Authorization for private content is also something that's very important in this application because there's a lot of custom content like the lists of favorites, yeah, all the same stuff. So it has to be protected. And what I really like is Prisma. In the beginning, I was a bit skeptical about it because I had to write a lot of raw SQL because it didn't support many Postgres features. But now I'm really happy with it because they have evolved a lot since the beginning of Blitz.js. So now I'm going to tell a bit more about all the parts of my application. So data fetching. I have Kubernetes cron jobs to keep all my data up to date. So all the different channels from all the different platforms and all the video games that are released. So I created API routes to retrieve the data from all the different APIs and also from scrapers, because not all data is available through APIs, so I have to scrape it. And I'm using an API key to protect the API routes because I don't want them to be accessible by users. And because I'm using it on a server, I'm not able to use the session authorization that's included with Blitz. So I opted to go with API keys. What I really like about this setup is that I don't have to create separate applications that are running in my cron jobs, but that I'm just calling the API route, and I can reuse all the code that's available in Blitz to store my data in a database and retrieve the data from the APIs. I'm also using Meilisearch for searching my application. It's an open source Algolia alternative, and it basically works the same. So when I retrieve the data from the APIs and insert it into the database, I also update Meilisearch so it's up to date with the database. I also have notifications, but it's currently a bit flaky because I'm not really proficient with implementing sockets. So my current solution is to use Socket Cluster, which is an easily scalable solution for WebSockets in Kubernetes. Or you don't have to run it in Kubernetes, but it's the recommended way. So I connect to the Blitz app with Socket Cluster through the WebSocket hook. And I create the notifications by another cron job in Kubernetes that calls an API in Blitz. And that API checks all the events that are available in the database. So let's, for example, say channel of Ninja comes online at 6 p.m. And users can choose in the application if they want to get notifications when it comes online. So they can choose if they want 30 minutes before it comes live, 15 minutes or 5 minutes, or we can choose them all. So I have all the events stored with the date. So I have a cron job that checks every minute which events are going to come live. And these are sent to the socket cluster. And then it can send, then it can retrieve the, sorry, I'm wrong. It creates the notifications for these events. And then the socket cluster gets notified when the events are created. So, and then if the user is online, they get a notification. If the user is not online, then the notification will set as unread. And if the user comes online before the event is live, then he will retrieve the notification. And if he comes online after the event happened, the notification is gone, so he won't get a notification again. I still have to do some cleanup on this part, and also I'm now storing all the notifications in the database, and I probably should add a cron script to clean the database after a couple of days or hours to remove all the old notifications because I'm now storing the online and offline all together. Deployment, yeah. So as I said, it's deployed on Kubernetes, but I was struggling a lot with how do I want to deploy the application. In the beginning, I was thinking, yeah, Blitz is serverless. It was advertised as a serverless framework, but I'm not really proficient with serverless deployments. Yeah, I know Vercel, but once you want cron jobs, WebSockets, you have to go to AWS to get all the goodies with serverless. And I honestly didn't want to spend too much time to learn the whole AWS stack and implement serverless. So I just went with containers because that's what I know best. I'm not a web developer by trade. I come from an ops background, so containers are something I know a lot about. And it was the easiest way for me to deploy the application. Why did I choose Blitz? Because it's built on concepts of other frameworks. It uses Next.js and Prisma. So it's not reinventing the wheel, and I really like that because especially Next.js already has proven to be a very stable framework. It's very popular, so you know it's just right. There is almost no setup, linting, testing, everything is set up. And as I said, I'm not a web developer. I don't know all these tools very well. So for me, it's very easy that everything is there out of the box. That it's a JavaScript, TypeScript framework. I like JavaScript and TypeScript the most to build web applications. And there wasn't really a nice framework to build web applications. In the past, I've used Meteor.js, but it's kind of stuck. There aren't a lot of developments. They're only using MongoDB, so I was looking for something else. And I came across Blitz, and I really like it. I like that you're able to use same code on the client and the server, so you can reuse the queries and the mutations and all the stuff. That's also what I was doing with the API routes and all the background data fetching that I'm doing with the cron jobs. I can just reuse all the same queries and mutations that I'm using in my front-end application, so that's very nice. I like that it's beginner friendly. I don't really think I'm a beginner, but I'm also definitely not a proficient web developer. So I really like that it's easy to get started and to get things up and running. Then the awesome community. I really like that Blitz.js is focused on community. I think that's a really important thing. And everyone is super friendly, super awesome. So yeah, I really like it. And then building authentication. That's something I struggle with a lot when I have to build a web application. So it's really nice that this comes out of the box and I don't have to worry and it just works. And it's secure and yeah, I just can plug in password and it's done. And this is kind of related to the previous one, but also to the authorization of Blitz.js. Like they have really good documentation on how to secure all your pages and all stuff, all your data. So I don't have to think too much about it and just do it as they say, and it just works. Thank you for listening. Does anyone have any questions?
That's really awesome, Lori. Thank you so much. First, your slides are really awesome. So
Yeah.
Great job. And that was super interesting. Just seeing like how your architecture and stuff. That was really cool. And yeah, we can take a few minutes for questions here if anyone has before we move on to Nicholas.
When will I be able to view streams on StreamSpace? Is there already like some kind of launch date in hand?
I already have users that are helping me, that are previewing the application, so it's not too long anymore. I don't really have a release date because it stresses me out.
Yeah,
I'm just going with the flow.
cool.
That's awesome. How many channels did you say you were handling?
5 million.
That's quite a lot.
That's so cool. So you have 5 million static generated pages.
Yes.
Are you using are you generating all of them at build time, or are you using fallback?
No. Yeah, I'm using fallback.
Okay, cool.
At first, I forgot to use fallback, and every time when I tried to build my application, my PC was just crashing, and I was like, oh, "What the hell is going on?" And then, yeah, I saw that I forgot to add it. So yeah,
That's
all
amazing.
my RAM was just bust.
Yeah. I love that so much about Blitz, and like it comes from Next.js, but compared to like Rails or Laravel, where if you want static pages, like you're kind of like on your own, like you can do, caching and stuff, but still it's like, yeah, it's pretty cool. Any questions? Any other questions? Nicholas asked, where are you hosting this?
Yeah, DigitalOcean.
Sorry?
DigitalOcean. Managed Kubernetes.
How is Melee Search? Have you had any issues with it?
Not yet. I really like it. It's easy to set up. So, and
I've
also
never heard of it. That is cool.
Also, the developers are very helpful. So if you have questions or are stuck, they are very responsive.
Yeah, it's great. I always default to Algolia for this, and I didn't know about Melee Search, so it's good to know.
I think there's even like a search alternative popping up in like past months. I think it's called Sonic, and it tries to be like the Redis of search engines. Also sounds very interesting.
What was the toughest part of building?
I think the WebSockets part was really hard because I don't know anything about WebSockets. And in the past, I used Blitz.js, and it was all out of the box, so I never had to think about it. So I would love if it would become part of Blitz, so it's easier to implement.
Are you using a custom server?
But no custom server.
So
it's a separate application.
And you're from the client, you're connecting to the separate application.
Yes.
So we can implement this in Blitz, but it would like opt into a custom server kind of automatically for you. So you wouldn't be able to deploy serverless, but then your like queries could run over WebSockets potentially.
That would be
like
nice.
We'd have to figure out how to you'd have to have, because Prisma doesn't have subscriptions, so there's things we have to figure out there. But yeah, I think like we should be able to add WebSocket support for queries somehow. There's an open issue for that people can subscribe to if they want.
Does Prisma have any plans to add it, or?
Not
that I've really heard anything about.
Not yet, but they are thinking about expanding to a lot of other databases. I think CockroachDB is on their table next, and
Mongo
actually
is for sure.
Mongo also, yeah. But from what I've heard from them, subscriptions does not seem like the next, it does not seem like a near future thing for them to do.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, Lori. And I should have mentioned that Lori was a maintainer, a level 1 maintainer for a while. She recently kind of retired to focus more on stream base, but thanks so much for your help there,
Maybe
Lori.
I'm coming back.
Yeah, welcome anytime.
I was just too busy, so yeah.
All right, Nicholas, yeah, thank you. Nicholas, take it away. Let's see what you have for Blitz Guard.
Let me share. Oops. Let me share my screen. So I hope everyone can see my editor there. Yeah. So Blitz Guard. We started this as the side project of a side project along with Gabriel here. And we started this last year around September, maybe. And like any good procrastinator, we ditched the side project, and I ended up publishing this a month ago. So, so Blitzcard is basically an authorization library that bases everything around one single file. So the idea is to try to reduce boilerplate and centralize all your rules into one single file. Those who have worked with Rails will have heard of CanCan, for example. There's also a similar library for Node called Castle. They all work based on the same principle. So yeah, what I'm going to do now is to show you my oversized demo. This is 100% real. This is not a joke. So my city basically had a new power plant installed, but they are too dumb and they didn't add any security to it. So it's basically open to the world. And we're going to try adding Blitzcard and securing the endpoints for them. So this is the power plant. Oops. This is 100% real. This is how nuclear reactors look and how the panels work. So as you can see, I'm currently logged in as the director of the power plant. We have different users which we can switch to. And we have these things that we undo. So we can make the power plant generate more or less energy. We can also access these real scenario access logs, which I did not steal from the internet. We can also self-destroy the power plant, because who doesn't want to make a hole in your own city? So right now it's completely open to the public. So I refreshed. It's completely open. Anyone with any type of role can do everything. And we're going to start by installing the recipe that will set up everything we need. Can everyone see where I write here, or is it too small? Yeah? Okay. So let's start with the recipe. So we're going to install the dependencies, which is only one for the moment. Then we will add one route, which is going to be used to check the permissions on the front-end side. We'll add the ability file, which is the main entry point for all the rules. And it will also add this middleware that will kind of help us on the development. So if we go, first of all, we go to Blitz config, and we can see that there is this middleware that the only thing that it will do is to kind of warn us that we have endpoints, mutations, or queries that are not protected. So if I start the server, wow, this is the part that should be fast.
Reload the page.
Yeah. It hasn't started yet. Here we go. So as you can see, you will start to get this kind of notifications because we're not protecting this particular endpoint. If I try to generate more, for example, you will get the same thing for this mutation. The same for everything. There are some cases where you want to avoid flooding your logs with this nonsense, so you can actually come here and add a new line, and it will skip showing that that endpoint is not secure. So that's the first part. You can use it, or you can just remove it if you don't want it. It's completely fine. Then you will see that there's a new folder called guard. Inside, you will find the ability file. This is where we set up all of our rules for the application. By default, if you don't have anything, everything is allowed. So it actually starts by denying all the rules. Right now, it's not doing anything because we haven't yet secured our endpoints. So we can still do pretty much whatever we like. So instead of queries, this query that we are exporting directly, that will be used for a hook that I will show later. So let's go to our mutations or our queries. To protect one of the endpoints, we can basically import guard from the ability file. So as you see, this is being exported. And we can call the authorize method. One thing that I forgot to mention is that you have resources and you have abilities. A resource could be, for example, a comment if you have a comment table. And an ability could be either read or create or whatever you like, actually. So I'm going to delete this. By default, there's a helper here that will extract all the models from your Prisma database. So if I come here and I can, for example, manage, you will see that all of these are my tables. All is special. It's like a wildcard that will match everything. So I have 3 tables in my database: user, session, and reactor, which is this thing on the right. I'm gonna just add reactor here because I don't need anything else. And I'm gonna add some abilities. So let's add control. Let's add read access logs. And let's add self-destruct, because why not? So now if I come here, I could choose all these abilities in this way. You can obviously decide not to extend the abilities, and by default, it will show you read, create, update, and delete. But you can also control it. So let's stick with this for now. I'm going to go back to authorize. So this is read access log. This is the query. So I'm going to authorize read access log on reactor, and I will pass the query as a third param. Now, if we try to, let me see if I will delete this. So if I try to hit read access logs, now I get a 403 because the middleware is checking that the user actually has permissions to do this. Oops, let's go back. So I'm going to do the same for all the other mutations, and then we're going to create the actual rules. So this is guard. Authorize. This is self-destroy. Reactor. Also gonna do this here. Oops. So start. How did I call it? I called it control. So this is control and this is reactor. So now everything should be protected. If I try to increase the energy production, for example, we'll get an authorization error. The same if I try to decrease it. If I try to read access log, we get this, and it goes straight to. If I try to self-destroy, the same thing. So now we cannot do anything with any of the users. Now comes the other part, where we actually start enabling the users to do certain things. So first of all, if the person is not authorized, so we get the context here. If the person is not logged in, we will do nothing. Oops. So this rule will get evaluated, which means that they won't be able to do anything. Manage is another wildcard as well as all. So this means that you cannot do anything. If the person is not logged in, oops, there. This is the only rule that will get evaluated, so won't be able to do anything. Now we wanna, for example, if the user, if the roles include director, which is the role of this person here, we wanna allow him or her to control the reactor. We also want to let the director generate, we called it, to access the logs on the reactor. And we want to let the director self-destroy the reactor. This is pretty stupid, but it's real, guys. So now, if I go to the technician, for example, which doesn't have any rule, everything's been denied, we shouldn't be able to do anything. But if I switch to the director, now we should be able to change stuff. Right? So I could go ahead and do the same thing for the other roles. The technician, and I can do the same for the Secret Service, whatever that means. So the Secret Service can only self-destroy the reactor because that's what the Secret Service does, apparently. And the technician can control the reactor and read the access logs. So let's switch to the technician. It should be able to control the reactor up and down, read the access logs, but shouldn't be able to self-destroy. And if we switch to the Secret Service, the opposite thing. So we cannot do anything, but it can self-destroy, right? There's a counter and everything because that makes it more real. Okay, so another thing that we can actually do. So this is pretty basic. The rules are pretty basic, but it could happen that, for example, some of the rules need some context that comes specifically from the endpoints, from the mutations, or from the queries. So on the third param, what you're gonna get is the arguments that come to your query or mutation. So I'm gonna import, so this should be args, which is update, whatever this is. I guess that this is an async function. So we can probably so what we can do is, for example, the technician cannot set the energy any farther than 1800, let's say. So what we can do is, this is, by the way, being used on this mutation. This is the arguments for the mutation. So we have data, we have the generation for the reactor, which we can also use here. Oops. Yeah. So we can check that this rule only gets applied. So the technician can only control the reactor if the generation is less than 1800. So now if I go to the technician and generate more, well, what did I do wrong? Generation. Oh yeah. This is live coding, guys. I didn't switch to the technician, that's why. So I can increase it, and at some point I should get, yes, an authorization error, because the data is being sent to the guard for this rule. That's nice. So now you have, you throw an unauthorized error for everything that you need, but there's one more thing. If the person doesn't have access to one of these specific functions, then you don't really want to show these buttons here, right? So we have a file that has all these buttons that's called, I believe, actions. And now it comes the other part. We can have a hook that checks the rules for you. So we're gonna import use query, I think it's already there. Yeah. Use query. We're gonna pass get ability, which is on the queries folder. And then as third parameter, it takes an array of arrays. So we want to check that the person can generate or can control the reactor. We also want to check that the person can read the access logs on the reactor. Destroy the reactor. And this will come back as as an array of 4 booleans. So we have control reactor here. We have read access logs. We have so it's 3 rules. So it's self-destroy, self-destroy. Oops. Okay, so what did I break? Yes. So on control reactor, for example, it's expecting that we also pass the argument, because it depends on the generated milliwatts or whatever. I don't know. So we are actually going to send this data. Oops. This should also be this. What's complaining about? Use mutation. Well, I broke something, obviously.
You have a naming problem.
Yeah,
Self-destroying
yeah.
the Boolean.
Oh, yeah, it's silly me. Let's call it can self-destroy. Thank you. So now we can actually use this to show or hide the buttons. We can also use read access logs here. We can also use can self-destroy. So as you see, now when I switch to the other, I think I have to refresh for some reason. Or I broke something again. Reactor log, reactor, let's check. So the director has everything as we did before. I probably broke something on the technician. So it should show. Well, let's continue. So the Secret Service only has access to one thing. This is basically how you can use, you can grab the abilities from the front end to hide or to show different parts of the code. It obviously depends on you passing the right arguments. So you can actually go ahead and use the same types for this as you used on the rule. But it's an easy way to change your UI based on the rules that you set, which are all in here. Now, I could probably go ahead and do this. And it will, manage. And it will deny everything. So I shouldn't have access to do anything. As you can see, I don't have any buttons now. And you can do all sorts of things we can and we cannot. Ideally, you want to deny everything. So to remove all the permissions from the users and slowly start giving them one by one. It's much simpler to think with the direct logic than the opposite. So this is BlitzGuard. This is the repo. If you want to try it, break it, please let us know so we can fix it. This is the documentation. We also have a section for testing, which is quite easy to do. You can either test the rules like this, or you can test your endpoints. So yeah, that's it, guys. Don't forget to always secure your nuclear power plants. Yeah.
Wow, that's so awesome. that was excellent. Yeah. Wow. That's so cool. And you did a really good job of just like explaining, just showing it off too, and like showing it how powerful it is. That's really awesome. I haven't used it yet, but I'm definitely gonna have to get on the train.
Yeah. I expect people to come with more ideas or things that don't work and they need to be changed. I'm also planning to make a separate package just for Prisma. Perhaps we can do something more interesting with that as well, like having more fine control over the attributes that you can modify, for example.
Yeah, that would be cool. One comment on your the type for the Prisma thing. Prisma, as of like 216 at least, exports a type that has all of the models defined.
Yeah.
So you don't need that utility type anymore.
Yeah. When I did the last release, it wasn't there yet. So I had to do this. If you don't really want to see how it's built, that helper there. Yeah, it's disgusting, but it did the job for a while.
Cool. And the other thing that I thought about that could make this even a little bit nicer is, I'm not sure if it'll work. Actually, I think it would work right now. Is so let's say like for the technician, you have there on your screen for control reactor, and then you're passing in the args, and you have to explicitly pass the type there. So
Yeah.
you could import that the query for update reactor, or the mutation in this case, and you can automatically infer the type, the input type for that.
Yeah, well, I'm up to have any help.
And then the even a step beyond that is being able to get rid of control reactor, the strings, and just do pass the query or the mutation as the first argument to can.
That's interesting. Yeah. Yeah,
And
the
then
less you have to do, the better.
Yeah, and then you don't even have to yeah, like
You only have to be able to match
less stuff to make up.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's
Today.
a good change for V1.
Yeah. So because at runtime, you should be able to access the metadata for that query or mutation. So like the path or the name, and so you can use that to like save
that's
in
interesting.
your data. And so we might need to adjust how we do that in Blitz, and maybe make it a bit more like a public API.
For sure.
But that'd be a good idea.
Yeah, the less you have to write, the better. And also, you don't have, if you can infer the types directly, it's great.
Yeah. Anyone have questions, comments?
Nico, when is the version that I can fit into the pipe operator of this? Because we may want to.
You're gonna make a pull request, I think. But yeah, that's also something to try with the pipes proposal. It shouldn't be too hard to get it to work.
No, I think it should be easy and like more like Blitz, like natural Blitz, just to write the authorize there after the sod maybe.
Yeah, for sure.
And then the other option, which I've mentioned to you before, is replacing the is authorized implementation with a custom Blitz guard implementation, so that you would just use context to authorize pipe or resolver to authorize, and it would just, so you would have like one less API to use.
Yeah. Whatever makes you write less code is good in this case. There's also, if you go to, sometimes you want to just check the rule inside of a mutation and not protect the whole mutation. So you can actually do something like, you can do guard can and do the same thing as you would do here. But this time, instead of throwing an error, you can pass the arguments here. Instead of throwing an error, it will return a Boolean. So you can actually decide, I don't know, not to create X thing or whatever, like this. Because sometimes you just want to control what you can do instead of protecting the whole endpoint altogether.
Or like sometimes you need to change the arguments that you're passing to like Prisma.
Yeah, as well. Yeah, or pass something different, which you cannot do right now because it gets sent straight away. Unless you add another middleware there, but
yeah. Anyone have any more comments, questions? You're welcome to ask questions for Lori too. Like,
just wanted to say that I really loved the presentation. Like that was awesome. Even that, like somebody mentioned that you rebuilt Minecraft. That would have been awesome, but this was way better. And actually, I'm kind of worried about my nuclear power plant.
Yeah. These guys.
What are you using to render it?
That's React 3 Fiber, and this is like the stock demo they have, which I stole. Yeah. That's how nuclear reactors look like, by the way. I know because I'm an expert.
Oh, you're funny.
Well, if you guys have any more questions or want to talk about any of this, you can follow me on Twitter.
That's so cool. Any other questions, comments? You don't have comments for Lori or Nicholas, you can also ask any questions about like just Blitz in general or to anyone else here.
They're all sleeping. I should have talked less.
No, everybody's still in shock and awe, just like, wow.
I'm scared of the nuclear reactor.
Yeah. Either you start asking questions, so I will blow this thing up. So.
Well, if that was an open for questions, I think I would like to follow up with one that Lori floored earlier. It was the serverless question that was planted. I'm a traditional web guy, and one of my attractions to Blitz, I've been kind of piling all in here this past few months. I think a few of you here today have seen me on Discord the past month or so. Serverless, I know, is where I should be going, but I'm kind of a traditionalist, and my gosh, just in the past few years, I just finally mastered Docker. I mean, so now serverless, I'm like, oh my God, what do I do? But I know it's where I need to be. And I know that with Blitz, I can go there, but I'm kind of a little tenuous on when and where and what and how to apply myself there, and how how Blitz can help me and how I can go there faster. And I think maybe there is an opportunity really quick. I look at what Lori's doing just now, and I'm like, oh my God, this amazing site that she's doing, and wow. And it seems like this is a mature product that she could benefit from being serverless for just scaling. And I think probably a million, the 20, 30, 40 people that are listening right now maybe have the same question that I do on coming from a traditional web development, or even just Dockerizing an app, putting an app, getting a cluster of Kubernetes containers up, and then going serverless. How is this? Can I just build an app and then serverless is going to help me with Blitz? What are my pitfalls? What should I look out for? Maybe lay a groundwork here. I barely even know my question, but I think Lori kind of put it there for me. And now I want to follow up because someone else asked too. Does that even make sense?
I'm coming from an ops background. I was a Linux system engineer and a DevOps engineer, and even I find serverless overwhelming.
Overwhelming, yeah. I mean, I know I can go there for scaling, but to me, scaling is throwing up more cluster or throwing up more containers in a cluster, but now there's this new option. And this is where my knowledge drops off because I've been in an older world. And so I think there's a chance to recenter how I should be architecting and what Blitz is doing for me. And then I drop off a cliff in my knowledge. And I think maybe it's something missed in documentation in terms of, hey guys, this is new when we do this for you, part of that easy button kind of paradigm. And that's not that's just me coming in from a new world because I've been in the old one. That's all, right?
But actually, I find it very interesting that you mentioned that serverless is so overwhelming because the
I
way
don't see it
serverless
as
markets.
Yeah,
but
it's just
the way that
I haven't
serverless
done it yet. I just haven't done it yet. That's the thing.
Yeah, but like I can relate to that thought, and considering that serverless markets itself as the easy thing, there's really like a big gap of what they try to sell you and what they really are.
Yeah.
And the way I see it when I think about complicated serverless, I think about like AWS Lambda and the whole, like, those diagrams that Amazon likes to draw for where you try to build like a to-do application and it's like 50 different services cobbled together. That's like the kind of serverless that I hate and I don't want to think about it.
Yeah.
But for me personally, like what serverless means when you talk about like, I feel like there's two different things that are referred to as serverless. And when you think about like serverless deployments using Blitz, for example, on Vercel, on Netlify, on one of the other serverless providers, it is really easy. And there's not a huge difference. There are some slight changes in what you can do. For example, like I'm biased here, but queuing is one of them. Queuing is an entire different thing on serverless than it is on server full architecture. But I feel like with Vercel and Netlify, that's more like the easy and accessible way of serverless. Have you tried Vercel and Netlify and stuff?
Honestly, I've spent the week just trying to get things to compile with all the changes.
Wow, yeah.
But that's because I've been trying to keep up and make my own changes and relearning Docker, which I haven't touched in a few months, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I've learned a few things about the yarn lock file, which I've forgotten about. And I have a note about updating the yarn lock file, which I might add to everybody here to keep an eye on. But that's been a learning week for me, right? That's been a learning and reminding myself of these pitfalls. But buried inside of what you said, it should be easy, and deploying it should be easy to these other platforms. But the project I'm working on, I'm looking at not deploying it to Vercel and deploying it to other providers. And what I've been doing as I've been following along with the different versions, I've been following along in Discord, I've been searching in Discord, and I've been picking up details in the chats about, oh, serverless isn't doing this, and oh, there's a problem with serverless with that. And what I'm really doing, and I think now I can explain my question better. What I've really been doing is vetting Blitz as serverless for the future. And in the meantime, having my fallback as standard containers and moving forward and knowing I can do that. What I'm really doing is watching and waiting and vetting and knowing, oh, okay, Vercel and et cetera, et cetera. And is that easy button that you're mentioning now, Simon? But my business partners, my other people are saying, oh no, we need to go over here. So I'm reading and I'm looking at all these concerns and I guess it's those pitfalls that I look at.
Serverless full stack applications like deploying Blitz serverless is still the Wild West. That's really the long and short of it. It's still the Wild West. If you do it, you're a pioneer. You have to figure things out. And Vercel gives you serverless for, it's more like front end, focused, and that's what they say. They're like a front end platform. And it's so amazing and simple and it just works. It's awesome. And so you immediately are like, you just want to deploy your whole application like that. But then you immediately run into all sorts of things. Number one is execution duration limits on Vercel are pretty low. Whereas on Lambda, raw Lambda is 15 minutes, but Vercel, it's like 10 seconds on a free tier and 60 seconds on the paid paid tier, and enterprise, you have to get enterprise, which is who knows what cost to get longer durations. And then also cold start issues, which can be relatively noticeable depending on what's happening. Where if you're using raw Lambda directly, then you can have provision concurrency, and you can say, hey, I want at least 20, 50, 1,000 Lambdas all running, waiting for requests to happen, which like that's really what you want, is at least one Lambda waiting. So you can't do that with Vercel. And then you also want to maybe access stuff within a VPC if you're doing serverless. Like if you're going to do serverless queuing and things, which Quirl is like kind of a good solution to that, or Vercel, but you still have the execution limits, where ideally you can just hook straight into AWS serverless SQS and stuff, because that's where serverless, that's one way that serverless is awesome, where it's all background processing. You don't have servers just waiting there to process background jobs, but it's all actually events in serverless. So that's serverless is awesome for that, but it's still like we need a Vercel type experience for that. It's still really hard to, you can use serverless framework, and it's still just a bunch of hand rolling stuff, and it's a big headache to really get it all working,
Yeah.
I actually feel like Netlify is trying to do a bit more the backend thing. And I think like we shouldn't just look at Vercel. Like at the moment, especially for Next.js type projects like Blitz.js, Vercel seems like the golden standard. But Vercel has made it rather clear that they're not going to go into the full stack direction. They want to be front end only, and that's just one thing that we have to figure out.
I think one of the challenges that you get there is that, so anyone that's deploying Vercel to other destinations, you're usually a bit behind. Like there is a serverless Next, which you can run, but it doesn't have the incremental static generation figured out yet, and neither does Netlify. And so like they are always a little bit behind. And so you kind of, run this risk of just being slightly behind, not using Vercel, but like, yeah, you're definitely right in that they're very much focused on the front end and not a huge emphasis. Like if you really want to go with some of the more traditional types of things that you would need, like queuing and whatnot, then you're gonna probably need to go either deploy to Vercel with your front end and then maintain a separate serverless stack for things like your background jobs and things like that, which you can, I've been kind of doing that with AWS CDK, but you could do it through CloudFormation. You get, it just starts to get really complicated. You're managing a couple different services through all this. And so it is a bit of a fragmented system right now.
Yeah, and that was kind of buried in my question too. It's the when and where to apply. And of course, now as in this conversation, this conversation has established my footing a little bit more. I found out I'm not crazy. Right. Yeah. So this is, I'm not, what I'm reading, what I'm seeing is correct. The Wild West has been verified. Yep. And it take things with caution, as I should be doing, and make my decisions accordingly. So I think I'm vetting appropriately, and that shall continue forth, and do some more trials and errors. I think Cam hit it actually appropriately on mix and match.
Yeah, I think like right now, and maybe it's this way for a long time, is kind of the ideal scenario is long running servers for your main web, like user facing web, your server that's serving user requests directly for API calls and stuff, but then serverless for all your background processing. Mark Lynch asked, how does render fit into your comments? Render is a server deployment, so that's not serverless. So it's render doesn't have any of these issues because it's a long-running server. One thing I'm definitely interested in trying out more is fly.io, fly.io. It's sort of a middle ground where you're running you're running long-running servers, but it's a bit of a serverless model because you can easily deploy them at edge locations, and they have auto-scaling things built in. And then something that's also really cool is that you can bridge your Fly network to a VPC. So it's a little bit of manual work right now, but then you can get more direct access to VPC stuff. So that's something that's interesting, is sort of like a middle ground.
Yeah, render is more like just the new version of Heroku. I think that's a way to think about it.
Yeah.
Well, thanks
But
for
actually,
your
I
time.
feel like serverless is not the right decision for most projects. Like, if you want to keep it simple, don't go serverless yet. Actually, like I had Squirrel.dev on Heroku, and I moved it to Vercel because Vercel is shiny, and I wanted to go to Vercel. And I actually found out that the performance on Heroku just was better because it didn't have cold starts. Squirrel is not a web page that has as many requests to just always have a Lambda running. And with Heroku, it just worked. And now actually the user experience is worse with Vercel.
Yeah, and the cold start is noticeable on Vercel.
Yeah.
So you can actually press a button and wait until something happens.
It's 1.5 seconds,
Yeah,
approximately, every time.
exactly.
Yeah. But actually, cold starts is a thing that potentially, like, it is fixable, right? Cloudflare has figured it out, so maybe in the future that won't be a problem anymore.
Cool. Any last questions, comments?
Thank you very much for hosting, and thank you for the talks.
Welcome.
Yeah, that was awesome. So we'll plan to do this again in 2 weeks from now, same day, same time. 2 weeks from now will be the next one. And if you're interested in giving a talk, lightning talk or a full talk, let me know. Happy to have you, because I don't think I have anyone lined up for next time. So definitely need
I'd
some.
like to give one. I worked on a project with Blitz in like a class or like university project, and it was very interesting, and I'd like to talk about the experiences there.
Cool. Lightning talk or full talk?
Don't know yet.
You
I'll
can think
tell
about
you.
it. Let me know.
Yeah.
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 Awesome.
Cool.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. See ya. Have a nice
Good
weekend.
one.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Thank you.